Welcome back, hackers. You have learned so much HTML and CSS. You are starting to learn semantic elements and how to use them on the page to create sections and divs and all sorts of layout structures, which we're going to continue to build on and become more complicated with. Keep going with this. First thing that we're going to do is we're going to do some review on the challenge I gave you last time. Then we're going to talk a little bit more, add a little bit more knowledge for the semantic elements that we first introduced you to in the last video. So again, starting off, let's dive into this challenge and tackle and come up with a solution. So the challenge that we had last time was called divs backgrounds colors. So let's go ahead and I'm going to create a new pin. So codepen.io, and then I'm going to create a new pin and I'm going to create an answer for this. Alright, so let's jump into this. So first thing is first is we're going to create a section with a background color of blue. Inside the section have a paragraph, have the color be yellow. Alright, so I'm going to create a section using a semantic section element, which is section which describes that this is a section of the page, and inside this section I'm going to have a paragraph with some words in it, and so now I have this section. So for here what I'm going to do is by default I'm going to have a background be blue and the color be yellow. Now there's a couple ways to do this actually, so you'll see that I just put the color like this. Let's see what happens if I put in the H1 tag here, like so. You'll notice that the yellow is applied to both of them. If I had done section and then P, look at, see how it only applies to that, right? So I want to go here and I'm going to have this color be yellow. That applies to all the text. So yellow is for everything that's inside this section when it comes to a text element. Doesn't matter if it's an H1 or a paragraph, it's going to apply that yellow color to it. So the next thing is we're gonna do is that we are going to create another section with a background of yellow and the text color of blue. So I'm going to create a section. I'm going to give a class of equals to reverse. I'm going to say P. So here what I'm going to do is you'll see that it automatically applies this coloring to it because it has a section. It's looking for this section, but I want to change this. So I'm going to say section reverse mustache brackets. So again, I'm going to use color as one of my attributes, and I'm going to say blue, and background is going to be yellow. So I'm changing these properties to be the inverse of it. Now you're probably asking, why are you using reverse rather than using like background blue or something like that? Eventually you can get into this thing called SCSS or SAS, and it allows you to create a thing called variables, which is later down the line, and it's generally best to have more broad words when it comes to how you're describing something. A lot of times new developers, they will be too specific, meaning they will say background blue, or they'll call this blue or something like that. And then they would have it be like this, right? Well, what ends up happening is that your client calls you and it says, hey, rather than having this text color be blue, I want it to be green. So the developer has to come in here and change green, and then come into here and change green, and then now come into here and change green. Where if I had just kept it being something generic like reverse or primary, I could keep it all the same. So it's a color, and let's just do this again. Blue, background, yellow. All right, let's keep moving on. So next we have the next section, which is I want to create a third section with a background of black and text color of white. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to say section, and we will call this, so first I need to fix this line. We'll call it dark. We'll say background is going to be black. Again, we have what we're wanting to change then we have the equal sign, which is a colon, and then we have the attribute that we're changing it to. Then I have here color white. So now if I create a new section, I'm going to, inside this, create a paragraph. There you go. Now I want to create a reverse of this. So I have dark. Let's say I'm going to create a section of light. So I'm going to go section, light, background is going to be white, and color is going to be black. And then nothing shows up because I need to first put a paragraph in there. And there you go. Awesome. So now what we're going to do is we're going to continue with our education in semantic elements, and I'm going to introduce you into a couple more elements. So I'm going to open up a new tab so we can talk about these, and this is going to be really quick. So semantic elements, again, they describe the content on the page. What I mean by that is back in the day, we used to use divs. Divs means division, and divisions were just basically empty containers. And before HTML5, the way that we would create a header on a page is we would create a div and we would say class equals header. And so then we'd create some HTML or CSS down here and we'd say header background green. So this div, it's an empty container and we're adding a class onto it, an attribute onto it, a class onto it of header, which now is saying that this is the header of the website. And for those who don't know, the header of a website is going to be the items up on top, up here. That's the header. This below, if I scroll down all the way to the bottom, annotate screen here, this is the footer. So we have header on the top, footer on the bottom, and then you'll have here, generally speaking, you will also have inside of your header, or maybe outside, is you have a nav. So semantic, what it does is it changes it from being where you have this div, which is just an empty container, and then you have the class name header. You would mark it up differently in HTML5 by saying something like header so now if I go here, I'm going to say header background red. Notice the difference between the two of these is that this one has a period in front of it, so that means it's a class. It's looking for the class attribute. This one doesn't have anything because it is just looking for the tag. Again, what's to the right of the less than symbol is the title of the tag. In this case, it's a header. So we're describing now that this, if I could look at this code, the difference is now if I just look at this code, I automatically know that this section here is the header of my document. I don't have to have a class attached to it. I can still add a class, and you'll see this often a lot. You'll have a class of header inside there, and we'll go into that later on and why someone might want to do that. But just by reading the code, it is semantic because I can read the code and I know what it's talking about. Non-semantic, like div, you have to have more information attached to it through the attributes. You have to have in the class attribute, you have to have it say class, like, or header like we had before. That's the only way I know that this is the header. This innately doesn't tell me it's a header right off the bat. So there are some very common semantic tags that you're going to use over and over again in your career. The first one is going to be the header. The next one that you're going to do, you're going to see it often, is going to be the footer. This often goes at the, or it should go on the bottom of the page. So header's on the top of the page, footer's on the bottom of the page. So again, if I want to target the footer here, I type in the tag, in this case is the footer tag. I'm going to say background of, let's say, purple, so we can see it. Another common semantic tag that you're going to run into is going to be main. So main is thinking of the main content of the page. So if I wanted to change the font size of this, I type in main, mustache brackets, font size, let's say 20 pixels. So now we know the header is the top, the main is the kind of main section, and then the footer, and you've already been introduced into the section semantic, which we went over last time. So here is a list of other semantics that you're going to run into, but the ones that I just showed you are the main ones that you'll run into over and over again. Again, it's going to be footer, header, main, section, and then later on we will show you nav for the navigation. A side is the left side or the right side, and the articles go inside, but these are the main ones that you're going to probably use more than likely in your experience as a developer. Is going to be footer, header, main, section, and then navigation, and from time to time you will definitely have articles. So with all that being said, let's practice this. You now, by watching me, you have seen that I've quickly created a page here. I actually have an HTML page. I have a header, a main, and a footer. I'm working towards the building blocks to create a really cool looking site. So here is our challenge. Let's go ahead and let me bring up our challenge. So I'm going to save this and go to our challenges. Okay, here we go. Challenge, header, main, footer. This is going to be a little bit of a long one too, but I believe that you can do this. So first thing you're going to do is you're going to create a page, a CodePen page, and inside of the page you're going to have the header. Inside the header you're going to have an H1 tag and have the background be tomato, so it's going to be a tomato red, and the text color be white. So you're going to have a header tag inside of that H1, and then the color is going to be tomato with the text color of white. Next, you're going to use the main tag to create a main section of your page. Inside the main, have an H2 tag, and underneath that with 3 paragraphs. Have the font size be 12 pixels for the paragraphs, and use this hex code as the font color, CCCCCC. For the main section, have the background be white. Okay. Finally, have a footer with a paragraph in it. Have the footer match the header's colors. So I want the background color to be tomato and the text color to be white. Finally, I want you to set all fonts on the page to Arial. Now I know that this is a lot of instructions, but I believe that you can do this. We've gone so far so in such a short amount of time. I can't wait to see where you're going next. You know this, coding is not that hard. You can do it, keep pushing forward, and we will see you in the next lesson.